folks. It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game system. And of course, we've been talking about the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and diving into the information in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the DMG. So today for you, we're continuing the DMG, and starting off with tracking. There may be a time when you as an adventurer are going to come across some kind of trail, some kind of tracks of a creatures, beings that you want to follow. In the same retrospect, you might be plodding along and some kind of enemy is following your tracks trying to find you. There are some simple things to handle this that I'm going to go over here so that you understand, both as a player and a DM, tracking. So the basis way is if I've got a trail, something that is showing me a way to somewhere else, it's a survival wisdom check, or wisdom survival check, to follow it. Pure wisdom, survival if you got it, find out where it's going. Now, there are a number of factors that are going to come into play here when following this trail. First off, when I have to roll again. My one roll tells me how long I can follow this trail. This keeps going until a number of things could happen. First off, take a break. If I take a short or a long rest, the trail begins to go cold. I'll have to make a new check for it. Environmental factors. Let's say I come across some kind of obstacle that's cutting off the trail for a while. Something like a river. The trail leads up to the river. Trail leads on the other side of it. I'm still going to have to ford that river and find the location where the trail is on the other side of the river. The other factor? Changing environment. Changing environment could be anything from the weather. Maybe it starts raining, washing away the trail. Or the terrain itself changing. I'm moving from forest to desert. Hey, that's a change in terrain. Here's where the DC of these checks comes in. It's going to be based upon terrain and age. You see here? A muddy terrain is going to leave a lot of better tracks than a hard dirt ground rock terrain. That's for sure. And the longer you go, basically every 24 hours that you wait to track this or follow this trail, makes it more difficult. So the book does provide a small chart, give you base idea DCs for tracking. You can use these to the letter. You can adapt them as you want. You as the DM are going to have to kind of figure it out, kind of interpret based on the circumstance what kind of DC your players are going to go against when it comes to following this trail. Now, just because you check and you fail doesn't mean you can't try again. You're going to have to spend some time, and you could try to pick up the trail. This amount of time depends on the environment you're in. If you're within a dungeon, it takes about 10 minutes if you've lost the trail to pick it up again. If you're out in the wild, it takes about an hour. Basically, like, you start trailing it, you lose track of it. Oh, I got to catch it again. Got to get back into it. Where is this trail taking me? And that can cause delays. It effectively, you can take the time and roll again. Alright, let's move on from tracking, which was part of our exploration we talked about last time, into social interactions. Because there's going to be some point in time where your players are going to want to interact socially with another character. Most of the time we're talking about this, it's NPCs. They might talk with them because they've got some kind of goal that they have to work out with them, maybe get some information, or maybe talking to this person in game, earning their trust, will get you something down the line that's going to help you out on your adventures. There are plenty of great reasons to interact socially with NPCs. Now these NPCs, these characters you're interacting with, are going to have their own objectives, own goals, own way of doing things that might make a difference about how this interactions occurs. Your goals might not align, so just because you're basically like, hey, can you help me out? They might not. Now, when it comes to this interaction, there's a couple ways to handle it. First off, pure role-playing. I'm speaking with this character, and my DM, played by me, speaks back at them. We have a conversation. The way the conversation goes depends on the result of the social interaction. Another way is pure dice rolling. I roll a dice. I compare it to something a player rolls. We either roll off or he just makes a check, something of the like. We see what the result is. This determines what kind of information is gained. These are kind of two opposite camps, but the majority of players and DMs kind of follow in this mid-camp, and I personally kind of follow more in camp. You use a little bit of character skill, which is your dice roll, combined with a little bit of your player skill, which is what you role play. I might roll a check, but My role-playing could then basically determine it up and down. My check might not necessarily hit that DC, or it might be a little higher. But if I say the wrong thing, it might lower it. Or I say the right thing, it may raise it. So you can see how combining the two of them can come on an interesting balance. And the majority of people do that. But whatever flavor you think is best for your games as a Dungeon Master, do it. If you want to kind of skip over a lot of this, if your players aren't going to like a lot of social interaction, go to pure dice rolls. Or if that's what they love most, stick with pure speaking. Pure role-playing. Now, the Player's Handbook does go over some basics of social interaction and how you can use it in your games, but we're going to dive a little deeper into it in a level of information that your players most of the time aren't going to see. This is stuff that you as the DM are going to have to handle basically in the background, invisible to your players. First off, attitude. This is the NPC, the character your players are interacting with, their starting attitude. There are 3 different attitudes: friendly, indifferent, hostile. Friendly basically says, hey, I'm willing to help these guys out. In some way, I can do some things with it. I'm willing to be chatty. We can talk it up. Effectively, your players can get a lot out of this person without a lot of effort. Now, this means I might be willing to put myself in a little bit of danger to help them. But to get myself in danger that I will risk a lot of personal loss might require some kind of charisma check to convince me. But it's possible. It's possible to convince me in this case. Not an impossibility, which in certain circumstances it might be. I'm in a bigger footing ground. Now there's also indifferent. Indifferent is sort of that middle ground. They're not necessarily hostile, but they're not necessarily friendly. They're in a position where their goals might align with yours. They might not go with yours, but they're not willing to go up in a big open fight with you kind of thing. They could be indifferent to what your goals are. They could be supportive. They could be resistant to it. There's a lot of options for indifferent. I'm in a position where I don't really care. I'm looking out for what's beneficial to me in this case, and whatever's going on with this player, if it's not beneficial to me, I don't see a use for it, I'm not interested in it. It could be just pure indifference. It could be that you just don't like what they're offering, don't want to deal anything about it. There's a lot of callous disregard here to the level of it. It's that I'm looking out for me in this case, in this level of conversation, in relation to the player and their problems. I could still be polite, but I could also be relatively kind of a jerk, standoffish. A charisma check would be required to convince me to do anything in this case, and it's going to be more difficult than if I was friendly to you in the beginning. Now, hostile. Hostile is a level that does not necessarily mean I'm out to get in a fight, punch, hit them, go after them. It means that I don't want anything to do with them. I just hate them, whatever. Or I'm opposed to their goals. And regardless, if I'm in a hostile attitude and still willing to talk to them, that means more than likely I'm willing to do stuff to undermine their goal, but indirectly more, rather than a direct attack on them. I'm in that position where I don't like them, I want them to fail, and because my goals are better, their goals are worse. But we're just at this standoffish location in our attitudes. The thing about a hostile attitude is I can be in a position where you may never convince me to do anything to help you. You could never make a charisma check to change my mind, depending on the positions we both take. If directly opposing goals, yeah, you can't convince me of anything. If my goal is just something, and I hate you for whatever reason, then maybe you can convince me to do something to help you. But it's more difficult in the end, because again, I'm hostile to them. I just don't like these guys. If they keep bothering me, maybe I'll punch them. For hostile attitude, it might be multiple checks, if it's even possible to convince them anything. So, we got our attitudes down. Now we have to look at the actual conversation as it's being told. Your players are going to have to make their points, state their case, kind of frame out what they're saying with this NPC, what they're discussing with them, whether if you're actually having a direct conversation, role-playing it, or you're kind of just framing it out after the dice roll to make understanding what they want out of the conversation, what you may be able to provide. 2 important things come out of this entire idea of the conversation. First off, attitude. Changing the attitude. Because it's going to be your player's goal to make this character they're talking to more friendly toward them. Whether they're making this friendly person just help them, This indifferent person may be temporarily friendly, or this hostile person may be temporarily indifferent. You tend to only be able to move it, whether permanent or temporary, only one kind of degree up the chart. But the thing is, it's the same way with going down it. You could fail so badly that it makes an indifferent person temporarily hostile, or a friendly person temporarily indifferent. Permanent changes can recur depend on how this interaction occurs, but that's much rarer than this temporarily like, you pissed me off, I'm understanding, but you still pissed me off. You know, that's that friendly person that's like, I'm not working with you right now, you calm down, I'm off. Or it could be like that indifferent person like, fine, I'll help you out. They're not really changing their attitude overall. They're temporarily moving that direction because you're working on changing their attitude. This occurs over the course of a conversation. This is something the DM has to watch. As we interact between the two of us, as different points are being made, whether in actual role-playing or just using these points, it will change the way that the attitude is respected. It could be that you bring up some points that I, as a hostile or a different character, find very intriguing, and it increases my attitude. Or it could be things that you're bringing up because you think they're a great idea, and they make me more hostile to you. Whether it's going from friendly to indifferent or indifferent to hostile, it pisses me off. The interaction, or the kind of way you're framing the interaction, is going to make the difference here. Now, another important factor here is characteristics. I, as an NPC, will have personality characteristics just like a PC does. And the PCs aren't going to know my characteristics off the bat. They don't know what my bonds, my flaws, my ideals are. But this information can be critical to them in order to have us interact correctly. Effectively, if they know some of my bonds, flaws, ideals, they can work around them to convince me of something a lot better than if they didn't know them. Now, there are a couple of ways that you as a PC could go about gaining this information. First off, you interact with the person. You're having the conversation. As the conversation grows, you pick up, learn more about them. You can make a wisdom insight check that maybe you've picked up on something about them. You've picked up on a little trait that you're like, oh, that's the way you think. The DC is, of course, going to usually revolve around how open they are with you, basically how much they like you, friendly to hostile. It's harder to read someone that's hostile. Now, the thing about this is if you fail this check by 10 or more, you get a false reading, and basically you get a different idea when it's actually true about whatever kind of part of their personality is, and that could result in worse things then because you're acting under an assumption that's incorrect. You're not really going to know about that because this is, again, more set DC things that your DM will know about. You rolled, you don't know how well you succeeded or failed. You might have an idea that I probably failed because this guy didn't like me. You might not know that it's by that 10 or more. You might also think that maybe you just succeeded because they're very easy to influence, easy to read. Some people are just easy to read too. So though he might be hostile to you, you could easily read him, pick up on stuff. So you might just not know if that's a failure or a success in that case. Another way to do about it is to learn about the person before you have a conversation with them. Whether this is reading up on them, gaining some information out of a book, or talking to their friends or colleagues, basically picking up on something. Doing this takes a lot more time, but then puts you on a footing that when you approach this person, if you're going to them directly for some kind of negotiations, you know a little bit about them and can work off of that. There is some very good use to knowing someone's personality when you're going up to them. It's giving you that ground, that footing you can start with. But that's it for today. So, of course, I started with introducing you to tracking, following someone. And then I talked about some of this social interaction. We're breaking it down in an interesting way, more than just the PHP talks about, in a way that frames a conversation, frames this interaction to, not, I wouldn't say call it mechanical, but to make it easy to figure out what the results are in the long run, what this is going to get for your players. Almost making it like a little bit of an encounter, like a battle of creatures, on its own. Of course, in the next episode, we're going to finish up doing this, handle everything, and kind of get you to the end. But I hope you're having a great day. Remember to check out both my Twitch side, my Patreon, Discord, Twitter, all the links down below. If you have any interesting stories of social interactions with players, with NPCs, either side, depending on what you were at the time, that resulted in something very interesting. Whether it's more pure role-playing or pure dice rolling, let me know in the comments below. I'm always interested in learning about your role-playing adventures. But until the next time, I bid you farewell.